All right. So, if there's one thing I've noticed is that I was listening to last week's episode before everything, and I realized I say a lot, right? So, I was joking to myself that I need to have Mike put a counter on my on the YouTube video, but then I realized maybe I shouldn't because I think that would take way too much time. Number one. Number two, if I had to pay $1 for every time I say I would be giving my tax return to somebody. And so I'm just gonna say, welcome to the Nation80 Podcast. This is episode 25. This is your host, Rod. I'm with my co-host Mike, and I'm gonna try not to say a lot. Mike, what's going on?
I'm doing good, man. Now you got me all self-conscious about saying that. So yeah, no, doing good. A lot of stuff, as you just mentioned before we hit the record button. A lot of stuff that happened over this last week, and I'm excited for everything that we're talking about. It's some unfortunate news, but otherwise pretty excited.
Yeah, Mike. So before we get started, we usually start here and say, hey, what we've been digging this week and whatnot. But yes, let's get the unfortunate stuff out the way right now and kind of give them their proper send off. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit on the legendary Kevin Conroy, who was the longtime voice of Batman, who unfortunately passed away at the age of 66 this week. This is a article from the Hollywood Reporter, stating Kevin Conroy, the prolific voice actor who defined Batman for generations of audiences, died Thursday in New York after a short battle with cancer. Warner Brothers announced he was 66. Conroy voice starred in the acclaimed Batman the Animated Series from 1992 to 1996 and continued with the role through nearly 60 different productions spanning 15 films and 400 episodes of television, as well as video games. In recent years, he was a fixture of the comic convention circuit. Kevin was far more than an actor whom I had the pleasure of casting and directing. He was a dear friend for 30 plus years, whose kindness and generous spirit knew no boundaries, said casting and dialogue director Andrew Romano. Kevin's warm heart, delightfully deep laugh, and pure love of life will be with me forever. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, just devastating. I don't often get devastated or too torn up about celebrities or whoever that might pass away. And unless of course it's like family or friends, right? So but for celebrities, I'm always kind of like, oh, that sucks. But with Kevin, I feel like with Kevin, he has had such an influence on my life, not even as an adult, but as a kid. I mean, you think about Batman the Animated Series is what really got me into Batman in the first place and stuck with Batman. And just watching that whole DC animated universe, I didn't get that confidence from any other show. You could say maybe the X-Men, maybe Gargoyles, but Kevin and his voice acting as Batman in the Batman animated series, and even in the Arkham games as Batman was just a staple. It was just, you felt comfortable, you felt some nostalgia with that. And I'll always, I was just thinking about this the other day ago. I remember coming home from school, and the first thing I got to do was put on Batman animated series, and it's a show that I still watch today. And I actually ended up, I thought it was cool. My TV, it turns on, and it always puts out, features that you might be interested in or whatever. And the very first one that popped up was a Batman animated movie with Kevin Conroy, and it was on HBO Max, and it was basically like a tribute, like, hey, look, this guy's passed away. Why don't you catch up on some of his movies? And so started watching Mask of the Phantasm this weekend, and man, just the animation had its own style and its own classic just look to it. But I think what really drew me into that show was the voice acting, and to hear Kevin Conroy and to even see Kevin Conroy in some live action stuff. I want to say it was The Flash is where we got a cameo of him in there. He didn't play Batman, but he was in there. And so I'm it sucks because that's somebody that you always remember, because at least for me it was so much a part of my life growing up, thinking
Those
about.
were prime. That was a
Yeah,
prime time because I think me and you might have been, let's see, 92. That was like middle school, high school years,
right,
right? Like
right.
you said, influential years. And then there was a pocket, like you said, you had X-Men, you had Spider-Man, the animated series, you had Gargoyles. And so for Batman, matter of fact, because think about it too, you also had Superman, the animated series, and you
Hmm.
had Batman, the animated series. And of course, they did, I think, the Worlds Collide and put it into two. But Batman really held its own for a long period of time. And like you said, the stories from Paul Dini, I can't recall the artist's name, that all came together, especially with Kevin Conroy's voice, um, making this all truly unfortunate.
Yeah, it's just we talk about, we've had a few comic book artists pass away over the last few years, certainly some great actors, and I think and they're all sad. I think this one really hits home because, like you said, 92, we started listening to this cat, and
Hmm.
he was going strong even after the animated series went away, even after the Superman went away. Um, to have him as Batman in the Arkham Knight series was awesome, So you have those certain actors, that you're always like, okay, who played Batman the best?
Yeah.
And so before, you had Michael Keaton's Batman, and at the time there was nobody else doing anything like that. And then then you had George Clooney, and actually, and before him you had oh my gosh, I can't think of his
Yeah,
name
Val
now.
Kilmer.
Val Kilmer, right. So you had Keaton, Kilmer, Clooney, and so everybody was like, no, there's only one Batman. Well, I'll even throw Adam West in there.
Hmm.
There's only one Batman. It was Michael Keaton. Okay. And then you had the Batman animated series, and you start thinking, okay, Keaton Conroy. And then, of course, you got, Christian Bale and Robert Pattinson. And so thinking of all those heavy hitter blockbuster names, I find it hard for me to say anybody's higher than Kevin Conroy as Batman.
I think the reason why that's the case is because Kevin Conroy transcended a couple years by not only doing the animate. Well, number one, he didn't have to do anything physical, right?
Right.
So there
Right.
was nothing to judge on that aspect. And then all we got him was in the animated series, and then we got him in the video games. A lot of the people that you mentioned play Batman possibly once, except for Christian Bale and Adam West. They didn't play Batman enough for him to capture your heart, or the movie itself didn't do much to change your mind after a while, right?
Right.
Like at the time, those movies might have been great. Like the Keaton Batman was great for his time. If I was to watch it today, it's a little rough, right?
Right.
There's
Right.
even the Bale ones have their problems because they joke on his voice so much that when you watch it, sometimes you have no choice but to be like, man, he really he really threw it all in when it came to his voice. But Kevin Conroy, his voice was timeless for Batman. He played a great Batman and Bruce Wayne for that matter, right?
Hmm.
And so uh he didn't have to do too much in that sense. And well, oh, excuse me, let me change how I say that. The inflection in his voice is what really made Batman Batman. And the way that he was able to, the only other person who I think hits hard in the Batman series is Mark Hamill, right? So now
Hmm.
you have Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill who used to do these duels on the TV show and the game,
Right,
And
and Mark
so,
Hamill as the Joker. Yep,
yep, absolutely. And because of that, it was a match made in heaven, right? By the time we finally got another Joker, Heath Ledger, unfortunately, he had passed. But that would have been a great combination between him and Christian Bale if they had that tug of war a couple more times. But
right.
unfortunately, that didn't take place. So while we're also mourning the Kevin Conroy news, it was also brought to my attention that unfortunately we lost comic artist Carlos Pacheco, who died November 9th, a little over a month after the iconic illustrator announced that he'd been diagnosed with ALS, which is a neurodegenerative disease. And so he was born in 1961. He passed at 60 years of age. And this is an article from CBR. Pacheco's comic career includes work for both DC and Marvel and illustrations of a wide variety of superheroes, from the Justice Society to the Starjammers. Pacheco work began in Spanish language editions of Marvel books, published under the Comics Forum imprint at Plan- Planeta di Agostini, and in 1993, he illustrated Dark Guard, the first Marvel series to feature him as a sole penciler. Pacheco would go on to work on The Flash over at DC, and his career blossomed, eventually leading to gigs on Avengers Forever, Humans JLA JSA, Virtue and Vice, and Superman slash Batman. He also lent his pencils to mega events at both companies, including 2009's Final Crisis at DC and 2013's Age of Ultron at Marvel. Now, this one, I must admit, I do know Carlo Pacheco's work a bit. I can't say that I read too much from his stuff, but ultimately he was another. He was also kind of well known for kind of drawing like George Perez, and when
Mhm.
I say that, not like their style was the same, but he was also one of those gentlemen who can draw a massive amount of characters and get them all to fit wonderfully on one page. And you know, for anybody, especially in the comic world, because comic world is it's it sounds weird to say it this way, but it's really true. The comic world is what really engaged me in reading. It also gave me an imagination. It's also what made me think of what I wanted to do in the future. It gave me a lot. So when we lose these iconic artists and creators and the things that they did, it all stings quite a bit. We lost when me and Michael were doing the show about a year ago, or a couple months back. We lost George Perez, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And these heroes, they do age like everybody else. They do have health issues like everyone else. And the unfortunate thing, and I don't know about Carlos Pacheco's situation, but we all know that a lot of these comic artists do not get health care if they're not a part of the big two. And there's a lot riding on their shoulders. So I hope that he was in, you know, the most comfortable situation he could be in and everything, for his unfortunate passing. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just you think about a guy that has done. You talk about the characters that he's drawn. I think if anything, as I'm looking through his work, I start to recognize uh, a lot of his work, and to make the comparison with George Perez, yeah, for sure. Um, he has that kind of art style that, like, if you've read Civil War, it's kind of like that. That's kind of what his art style was. He did Avengers Forever back in 98, 99. And I remember that back in the day, and I'm thinking, like, this is kind of the art style that I've been used to back in the day, and even to a degree now. And just, you talk about the impressions of somebody like a Kevin Conroy has made over these last few decades. It's the same thing with this guy. He's just that kind of person who's just drawn very, very well, with especially Marvel and DC characters. I know you wrote like Green Lantern and some other things that you mentioned. I mostly recognize a lot of his stuff from Marvel, especially with
Same
the
here.
X-Men.
Yeah.
So
And I
that
always remember that Avengers Forever cover with all
yeah,
the faces on it.
yep, yep. And so, like, the guy's legit, and he was still doing stuff, he's actually uh doing the art for Maestro in World War M. So uh another loss to the comic book industry. And it's weird because, and I don't know if this has to do with the situation with writers and inkers and colorists and everybody that works in that industry not having the kind of benefits that they probably should have based off of
Hmm.
the billions that these companies are making now.
Mm.
I don't know if that has anything to do with it, because a lot of this guy was only what, 60?
Yeah.
Uh that's young.
Hmm.
That's young, and so I start to wonder, we've lost some pretty noticeable people. And with the exception of Stan Lee, none of these guys have been, it's not like they've been in their 90s, you know?
Right.
And so you start to wonder, like, is this a symptom of the industry and the amount of stress that these guys got to get put through? I mean, if you look at the sheer volume, I'm just looking through my Marvel Unlimited app, and you could type in his name and it'll pull up everything that he's done. And I'm
Hmm.
still scrolling.
Mm.
Okay. That's how much stuff this guy has done just for Marvel, and you think about, and it's not like an issue here, an issue there, maybe some of the newer stuff, but you go to some of these, his last major one was Shield in 2014, at 12 issues, Incredible Hulk, 16 issues, Astonishing X-Men, 17 issues, uh, Occupy Avengers, 9 issues, Uncanny Avengers, 31 issues, Uncanny Inhumans, 22 issues, and it just keeps going on. So it's not like this guy was a substitute teacher or substitute artist for some of these companies to plug and play, because they have those out there. But this guy was a legit dude within the industry, and it's unfortunate that we're gonna lose his talent, or that we've
Yeah,
lost his talent.
absolutely. He was definitely no slouch, and he will always be remembered through his art. And that's some of the beauties of being a creator, right? Is that your art, no matter if you're speaking or drawing or music, it lives on after you to help heal some of these people who are dealing with your loss, right? We can
Hmm.
always pick up an issue of Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, uh Carlos Pacheco on, like you said, the Marvel Unlimited app, and read through it. you know there's, of course, some unfortunate people who have passed away, and luckily, as long as there's no licensing issues, we can go to Comixology, we can go to DC, and still read a lot of those issues. So we just want to say rest in peace to both of these gentlemen. Unfortunate for both of, well, rest in peace to them. Thoughts and prayers to their family as they go through this situation. And we're going to just keep on. And so to keep on, Mike, let's just talk about what we've been digging this week.
Okay.
So how about you start us off?
Yeah. So I'm gonna start with a game, uh, but I'm gonna throw a quick mention to something that's maybe not so directly related to popular culture, but
Hmm.
has an actor in there that's very much into popular culture, Idris Ilba. And I go back and forth with a lot of I go through a lot of shows now, and right now I've been trying to steamroll through. So it was a limited series, BBC America, and it's called Luther. And it's where Idris, I don't want to say came into his own, because you think you've seen The Wire, and I think The Wire is kind of his breakout role. But in this, it's a police procedural type of show, but it's more about this guy who just has so many faults to him, and so many weird relationships with, he has a relationship with a serial killer. And it's like, man, okay, it's just really well done, really well written, and it really makes you appreciate guys like that who can do things like The Wire, and then do things like Luther, and then go to do things like Thor, or some of the he did a Fast and Furious movie with I think it was a spinoff one with The Rock, and
Shaw Hobbs, yeah.
yeah, Yeah, and so, and he's got other stuff, in Suicide Squad, so the amount of range that a guy like this had is amazing. But I just want to throw that out there real quick. What I've really been into and what am addicted to now, I never thought I would be addicted to this game, but it's called Katana Zero. Okay, and this game came out a couple of years ago in December, and it's a stylish neo noir action platformer. Okay, and one of the big things about this, or I don't want to say gimmick, but one of the features of this game is that you have the ability to control time. And so you go through these levels and you're given a time limit to go through just a section of each level. And if you don't, then what ends up happening is like the level rewinds and then you start again. And so I don't want people to get confused. It's not a roguelike. I can't I don't play very much roguelikes because I can't stand them. Um, but
What was
with
that again, Marty? I mean, Mike. What?
a roguelike, so it's one of those ones where you're meant to die over and over again and just
Oh,
repeat the mission. So there's some really the most popular one right now is called Hades. And that was actually a good one. It makes sense. It takes place in hell, whatever. But
mhm.
the whole purpose that you continually die and you lose your progress and then you got to keep going through it. Uh, in fact, there's a game coming to Steam and not too far from now called Returnal. It's a PlayStation 5 game. And its whole basis is you go through the game and you die and then you repeat. And it's kind of like that movie with Tom Cruise. Uh, I can't remember the name of the sci-fi movie. It's like a sci-fi Groundhog Day. And so that's what a roguelike is. And I can't stand them.
Right.
But
Okay.
Katana, yes, you'll die many, many times and you rewind and you just go through that level again. And it gets to the point where, okay, I already know what this guy's going to be, that guy's going to be. And so you also get to slow down time, whether to dodge or parry, and you're only using a single katana blade. All right. And it's super dope. Like it's got like this art style to it it's a 16-bit art style with great music. The music too is just absolutely phenomenal. And you're going through and it's a hack and slash. You're doing and you're it's got a deep story to it. It's got a ridiculously deep story to it where you're basically playing like s- uh, a soldier who or is a veteran at this point and went through some traumatic stuff when they were a child. He can't quite remember everything that happened. And as you progress throughout the game, you start to get little bits more, and you don't know if you're working for the right people, if the people you're working for necessarily have your best interests in hand, or if they're just using you. And so you're going through this game and it can get frustrating because I spent maybe an hour just on one level because I kept dying. And once I finally figured out what I really needed to do, because it's kind of a puzzle,
Mhm.
then you go through it, and then once you complete that section of the level, it actually gives you a replay without the bits where you're slowing down time. So everything looks in live motion. You're like, wow, that was dope. I just went through that entire thing, and it was pretty cool. So Katana Zero, it's on Steam right now. It's on sale actually, 40% off for 5.99. It's a great game. I don't know how close I am to finishing it. I imagine I'm a little bit more than 50% of the way through there, but it's it's super addicting, and I didn't think I would enjoy this game as much. I figured it was only 5.99, so I'll give it a try. And yeah, it's out of the last couple of weeks of purchases I've made, this is probably one of the best ones I've purchased, and it's super fun.
That's awesome to hear. So, is this a game that because I was looking online as you were talking about it. Is this a game that you bought on your Nintendo Switch or did you buy it for your Steam Deck?
Okay, so I'll put it this way. This was a game I wanted to buy on my Switch. There's a YouTube channel uh, called Switch Up, and it's these two British guys. They do is review Nintendo Switch games. And so when I got my Nintendo Switch, I watch their channel all the time. I still do. And mainly because they review everything, not just like the AAA games. And so I mainly reviewed it for or watched their channel for the third party ports that were coming over and if they were any good. So like the BioShock series, I wasn't sure if I was going to get it or not, but I saw it reviewed very well with them and I ended up buying it on the Switch and enjoyed it. But I also they also review the indie games. And when I got the Steam Deck, and this is from somebody else I realized who does reviews for Nintendo Switch games, Wolfden, and he started to realize, these indie games that are out on the Switch have been out for years already on PC.
Wow.
And so uh, this was a game that I wanted to get on the Switch at the time, but I just wasn't quite sold on it. And Nintendo has this weird what they call the Nintendo tax, where yeah, this game originally on Steam is $10. All right. But I guarantee you on the Nintendo Switch, it's probably like 15 or $20.
Hmm.
And so it's another reason why I'm so glad I switched over to the Steam Deck because games are just cheaper and they're on
Hmm.
sale all the time. And
Gives you more
so,
opportunity to experiment with a game, to not
yeah,
have to pay a premium price for it.
right. Like I don't know if I would have paid. That's why, and that's one of the reasons I didn't want to pay 15 $20 for a game I wasn't sure about. But for $5.99, I can okay if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, whatever.
Hmm.
It's $6. It is what it is. So, like I said, I still watch this channel, but I mainly watch it to see the indie games that I don't know about. And then I go around to Steam to see if they're on Steam and be like, oh, this game's been out for 2 years already.
Yeah.
Holy crap, are you kidding me? So yeah, Katana Zero it's fun. It's a really fun, it's fast paced, not too fast paced where you're like, oh my god, I don't see how anybody can play these games, and I'm getting old and my reflexes are getting slow. Like it's not like that, but it's fast enough to the point where you're going through each section of these levels, and it keeps you in, and then you want to find out what the story is with this guy, and it's really interesting. I want to try to make a video about it. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but this is a game that really has me excited.
That's good. That's good. And I'll have to try that out eventually after I work through a couple titles. So this week, the title that, well, the game I've been playing mostly outside of Marvel Snap, which is still great. They've done a couple updates to that. It's still a phenomenal mobile game, especially if you need something to play quick 5 minutes when you're at work or whatever. It has been Uncharted 4.
Hmm.
So I had a little time to mess around with it this weekend and really go through it. And look, hey, I'll be clear that Uncharted still plays like Uncharted, where you're going to look at Nathan Drake and say that this man has the most amazing grip in the world, because there's many a times that you're like, look, any normal human would have fell in that situation, right? The
Right.
thing that to me that always shines is I always kind of slightly compare this game to Assassin's Creed, right? In the sense, in Assassin's Creed, the beauty of it is that you get to do parkour, you climb up something high, you fall down into a bale of hay. But after about 30 minutes, it becomes the most boring game because you're doing the same thing over and over again. Now, I don't know about the newer titles because I don't know if Valhalla they do parkour or if there's other ways that's done. I never looked it up. But Uncharted 4, the story is what really keeps you captivated in the game while they give you, like, it's never just been cut and dry where Nathan Drake is supposed to go in the game. You
Hmm.
have to kind of figure it out. And yes, you can kind of identify what you're supposed to be gripping onto, but there's still some sort of challenge or puzzle that has to be solved to make it work. And they're not the most hardest puzzles in the world. It's not like you're going against the Riddler, but I enjoy the challenge, right? Even though sometimes I want to hurry up and get this game done so I can play the other part of Uncharted and then uninstall this from my hard drive for more space, right?
Hmm.
But that's just me in this new short-term attention society that we have, right? It's
Hmm.
like, give me this game for 4 hours, I should be able to beat it and I should be done. But that's not the case. But games like this, which PlayStation is well known for putting together, because I also look at Spider-Man, these games have always come through for me and made my interest peak that I'm going to play it for quite some time.
Hmm.
So I really love Uncharted 4. I'm on chapter 9 right now, and I thought, okay, I got to be close to being done. And I looked it up, and I'm nowhere close. There's 22 chapters, so
Oh,
there's a bit of
geez.
time. Yeah. So, but I will say that giving the right amount of time, I can knock out a chapter a day, like right before bed. I can go knock out a chapter real quick and then, call it a night. Just depends on the severity of the mission or whatever. But most of the time when I play it, to be fair with you, I'm not playing it on ultra hard or anything like that. I play it almost normal to easy because I just want to beat the game. I'm not going to even hold you.
Right.
Like, I respect people who want the challenge, but I just want to see how everything comes together, and I want to beat the game, and I don't have time to keep on trying and retrying and trying again
Be a
because
completionist and get all the
yeah, I
secrets and
yep,
intels and
yep,
right.
absolutely. Now, if this was a strictly gaming channel, then maybe I'd be that guy, but unfortunately, it's just not going to happen. I just don't. I personally don't have the time.
Yeah, yeah. Is this the one that we just recently got? And
Yes.
because it was like a package deal, there was a bunch of games in there, right? Or was it just like 2 or 3
It's
games?
just 2 games. It's Uncharted 4, and then there was another Uncharted game where it doesn't have Nathan Drake and it has 2 female leads. I can't remember the
Oh,
title
okay,
of
okay.
it, but th that lady who's in it, I believe she's in Uncharted 3. She might be in 4, and I just haven't seen her yet. But it's interesting. So, Michael, have you seen the Uncharted movie?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, we
Marky
do get to
Mark and
see. Yep.
our boy Spider Man.
Yes. So we do get to see Nadine in the game, and she is just as ruthless as the movie. So that was kind
Okay,
of cool to correlate that.
okay.
And I don't remember the Uncharted series too well as far as 1, 2, and 3, but we also see Nathan Drake's brother,
Yes,
just like we do in the movie. So that was cool to
yeah,
see. So if there's a sequel, I know it'll take a lot of pieces of Uncharted 4, I
yeah.
believe.
I know that I started that game
Mhm.
and I was impressed. It impresses me how well, and I don't know, you're playing this on your Steam Deck or you're playing this on your gaming PC?
Steam Deck. Oh,
Okay.
and let's real quick before you say anything else. Beautiful. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I like how this one plays better than God of War
Whoa, wow.
on the
Okay.
Steam Deck.
Okay.
God of War is still a great game, but I don't know if it's how they whatever with the game. It doesn't. The presentation doesn't captivate me like Uncharted 4 does.
Okay. Yeah, so what I was going to say was oh, I've only I think I'm still in the tutorial part of it because I'm right now. I think I'm in a prison learning the fighting mechanics of the game, and so, but from what I've seen so far on the Steam Deck, it looks phenomenal. I mean, just that even that opening scene when you're on the boat being chased by all these other boats, and you're trying to get to this island, and your boat's going up and down and crashing into the waves, and you're shooting at these boats that are coming at you, and there's explosions, and I'm like, man, this is a lot for the Steam Deck to handle, but it's handling them like a champ. And at this point, I guess we really shouldn't be surprised because the amount of games, including God of War and some of these other games that have come out or that have been out, whether it runs at 30 or 60 frames per second, it looks really good, like really
Mhm.
good. And so I think that's what I was impressed with Uncharted was just and at the brief amount of time that I've played it, just looks really, really good. And I had probably taken too much time with the tutorial just because I'm just
Yeah.
looking around and seeing what could be done. And I'm the kind of guy, I'm not sure if you've been doing this, but I'm the kind of guy that is now, I should say not just now, but have recently been really digging into how to tweak the settings, not only within the software, but within Steam Deck itself to get every last bit of graphical fidelity and performance out of that machine, and I read forums and I look at this and that, and people are talking about TDP and power, and you can get up to 3 or 4 hours. I'm like, well, I don't care about 3 or 4 hours. I'm never going to play this thing for 3 or 4 hours straight.
Hmm.
I got like an hour, maybe 2 hours at most,
Hmm.
and that's perfectly fine. So if I can get the graphical fidelity up, if I can get the FPS up, then I'm doing it. And so I know that's what I've been messing around with the Uncharted game, just because it just looks so good. It looks so good, and then trying to squeeze some more out of it just looks even better, and still be able to play well. Like you know, I love Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch, but we'll never see a game like this on the
No.
Nintendo Switch. And if we do, it it's gonna be it's gonna be taking some hits. It's gonna
And
be taking
I
a
was going to
lot of
say,
hits.
Nintendo is almost aware that they're never going to try to compete console war wise by just off of power of their system alone.
Right.
They're
Right.
going to go a different route, which has worked for them. But the downside of that is, games have a hard time porting over to the Nintendo Switch. Like you said, then they have to pay the Nintendo tax where their library is extremely expensive. And personally, for me, it doesn't seem right to purchase games over there
Mhm.
when, like you said, that indie game you purchased was only $5, but you know good and well Nintendo would have had it for almost 20. And then
Mhm.
come the holidays when they know that you want something at a discount, they're like, yeah, we'll give you 5% discount, 25% on a game that came out in 1998. And you're like, wait a second, not even not even trying to fake on these prices. You guys are really just trying to squeeze every last dollar out of it.
Right.
So,
Well,
yes.
and to say this real quick before we move on,
Mhm.
one game that I was really hoping to play this week was Sonic Frontiers,
Mm.
and it got pretty much what I expected. In fact, it did better than I expected. I think it scored in the 70s, mid 70s, as
Mhm.
far as reviews went. So it was better than I expected. I wasn't thinking it was going to be like 80s or 90s, like God of War
Sure.
Ragnarok, right?
Mhm.
I don't think anybody thought that. Unfortunately, and I knew from everything that I've seen, like the Nintendo Switch one is just terrible.
Mm.
They're it's having a hard time trying to stay at 30 frames per second, and then because it's such a fast game, there's a lot of pop in, but the pop in is like right in front of your character, and so it's like I'm trying to remember how one guy put it. When you're running through a forest or anything with grass, it's like Sonic is planting the forest or the grass himself as you're running through. That's how
Mm.
bad the pop in is. Usually there's some distance off in the off in the distance before you start to see stuff come in. This is like almost immediately in front of you. And so apparently it is unsupported on the Steam Deck. However, people have been playing it, and for the most part, they've gotten it to a point where they can play it at 30 frames stable-ish. I know some people have pushed it to 40 with some tweaks and whatnot, and there's some comments like, "Oh, it's playable at 40." So
Mhm.
I really was hoping that it would be much better because I'll be honest, I was getting ready to drop that $60 because I was really, really intrigued by this game. I was like, man, $60. I'm gonna do it, but let me just see what people are saying real quick. And I was like, oh, okay. So while we put the Steam Deck on a high pedestal, praise it all the time, uh, and especially after just talking about Uncharted and how well it works on that machine, there are going to be a few games that are going to need some love, and I have no doubt that the team at Sonic and the team at Valve are going to come up with updates to make this game run better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the so you were how you were talking about how you like to tweak the Steam Deck. I'm a guy that I want to pick it up and go.
Right.
Like it should already work And if I want to tweak it, I should be able to tweak it, sure. But if I buy a game, especially if it has that green check next to it, the
Mhm.
expectation is that I can pick it up and go. And you saw my issues I had with Hitman 3
Mhm.
and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
and that's and that's slight, right? But the expectation, and we talked about the culture of gaming in a previous episode and how these games sometimes come out, I won't say necessarily always incomplete, but they're not done to the point that sometimes you will have an enjoyable experience. And so we all now do that little hesitation wait of a week and a half before we purchase something. Let me see the reviews, see what someone's saying, especially with an EA game, because
Mhm.
the servers are bad. The running back is now running through the whole defensive line invisible, all these little things that take place and they have to get fixed or whatnot. And depending on the company, that could be within a couple of hours, or that can be a month in some cases. But uh, those are some like it always goes back to, hey, the Steam Deck is great, and they'll always work through a lot of that stuff. And so I'm excited to eventually try Sonic. I'm gonna wait for it to go on sale because the last Sonic game I played was on Dreamcast, and while it was fun, it just didn't do it for me.
Right.
So there might also be that point in my life where Sonic just ain't that guy anymore, but you never know.
Hmm.
So, Mike, let's go ahead and talk about some movies, right? So I'm kind of excited because we're going to be talking about a franchise that I love dearly, and that's John Wick. And Keanu Reeves, at 57 years of age, some reason still knows how to make an amazing action movie. And I don't know what it is about Keanu Reeves himself, but he almost feels like he's in his 40s, late 30s than he does in his 50s. And I hope I get that same type of energy when I get older, because every so often my back and my knees remind me, hey, you are in your 40s, my
Mhm.
brother. I don't know what you're doing. But this week, the trailer for John Wick 4 was released. Now, just to give you a quick premise of what's going on, point blank, John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table. This is going back to, of course, part 3 of John Wick. But before he can earn his freedom, John Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. Right? Now, the big bad in this one is Donnie Yen. And
Mhm.
if you've never seen
Mhm.
Ip
Mhm.
Man, or if you've never seen Rogue One, then you're missing out on who Donnie Yen is. And he is, I want to call him a megastar in China just for his ability to do martial arts, number one, and especially on film. I know he can do drama as well, but he is a very multifaceted type of actor. But he is, of course, well known for his martial arts skill. Uh, Especially, we're kind of in that pocket where there's no Jet Li, there's no Jackie Chan who does martial arts. So now it's Donnie Yen. Of course, there's the other gentleman who does the raid, but he's not from China, he's from Indonesia. But we see him now going toe to toe against John Wick. And the John Wick universe for me has always been this very interesting universe that even if John Wick wasn't in it, I would love to understand this code that assassins live by and things of that nature. So getting more of that, and then my boy Ian McShane is back here. It it's everything I could ask for. And don't get me wrong, it all started off with a dog, but to me, that's what makes this series kind of fun. It doesn't have to be this massive, thought provoking type of series. Just give me the premise, give me an understanding of what's supposed to be taking place, and let the bullets fly. And they always do that with the John Wick series. So I'm personally super excited. I probably won't see this in theaters because I really enjoy seeing these series at home. I
Mhm.
should maybe give it a shot one day in theaters, but that probably won't happen. But I can't wait. I can't wait. Mike, what you think?
Yeah, I'm excited to see this movie. Like you said, I'm not gonna watch this one in the theaters. I don't know if I've watched any of them in the theaters. I'm excited to see this one because while I like this series, the last one I did not really enjoy that much. And I want to say that was the one with Holly Berry in it. And so
Yes,
I
it was.
just what's that?
Yes, it was.
Well, that was the one? Yeah. So
Yes.
that one I kind of felt like it was not up to the same kind of level as the first two. Now, your comment about how does he keep doing this? I think a lot of that credit has to be due to um a his dedication. If you see his videos, his behind the scene videos of him just training, especially his gunplay, where he hires people, he hires a company to I forget what the name of the company is, but when you see how runs through his training, that is one dude I'm not trying to start a gunfight with because he like Tom Cruise always talks about training because he's another one of those guys that he is dedicated to his craft and it's all because of whatever training he's going through, right? Uh, but Keanu takes it to a whole nother level with it, because especially with the gunplay. I some of the you can look up some of his YouTube videos and just see like this is one lethal. I can see him as an operator in real life. Like I would have no doubt that, hey man, that's Keanu Reeves. He's armed, so don't fuck with him. Like I'm not trying to mess with Keanu Reeves, you know. So uh, I think because of that, you get that believability. You know, I just watched True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger last weekend. We had Elias watch that movie, and probably shouldn't have had him watch that because of the whole Jamie Lee Curtis scene where she's
Mhm.
stripping, and I was like, "Oh my god, I forgot that this was in here." Um, but it's a very fun movie. But that movie was made during a time when you had like Bruce Willis and Arnold and Stallone, and they would pull some of these cool moves or whatever. But looking at it now, it's like, okay, stunt double, stunt double, stunt double, terrible stunt double. My God, there's a lot of stunt doubles in this movie. And how they did the action, you're like, okay, it was cool then. I don't know if I really believe that you could do that, you know? And so when you look at Keanu, and especially with these John Wick movies, because they're very technical when it comes to the combat, like it's very technical. It's not super stylistic. There are parts where it is stylistic, but like there are some. One of the best scenes of any of the movies I saw was when he fought our boy uh, Common in the train, and it was lethal. It was fast. And at the end of the day, like when he stabbed Common and was like, "Yo, you can still make it to the hospital if you go now, or you can follow me, or keep going at it and just bleed out." And so gave him that bit of respect and mercy. And I thought that was just one of the best scenes I've ever seen in any kind of movie. And it was very technical and it was super clean that you could believe this. You know, how old is Keanu? He's got to be in his mid to late 50s. Uh,
He's
that he could
57.
57. Like he could pull this off against Common. Common is not is he's not young either. Um, and so and I've never seen Common in this type of role before. I've seen him in action roles, but never in something where I thought that, okay, I believe that you're a lethal person. What was the movie with Angelina Jolie and Morgan Freeman where they would shoot the bullets and it would curve around buildings?
Wanted. Yeah,
Wanted,
yeah.
right? Common was in that.
Mhm.
I didn't think Common was very dangerous in that movie, but I believed he was dangerous in John Wick, you know. So I think a lot of it has to do with the training that Keanu puts himself through. And then I think a lot of it has to deal with the people, and I had to look it up, but whoever comes up with the fight choreography is a damn genius. How do you and even the cinematographer, okay, the director of photography, how do you make a 57-year-old look fast, lethal, precise? Just how do you make that happen? And we've seen how it works and how it doesn't work. And my prime example is okay, how it works with obviously with John Wick, how it doesn't work with Cowboy Bebop. Okay. Um, because our boy John Cho got super stupid ripped. Okay, he got Bruce Lee ripped. But my biggest gripe with that show was that he had the wrong people choreographing that fight. And I'm sure Cho is younger than Keanu, so you can't tell me that a guy that gets that ripped can't look faster than. I have no problem thinking that John Wick can beat up what's his name? Sly. I can't even think the main character's name from Cowboy Bebop right now. But
Spike.
Spike. Yeah, I have no problem thinking that John Wick could beat up Spike. Okay, now if it was animated version John or Spike versus John Wick, that's a whole different fight, right? So I think a lot of credit has to go to the crew that comes up with these fights, whether it's the gunplay or the hand to hand, and a lot of it's John Wick. And then speaking of Donnie Yen, I'm always excited when Donnie Yen's in a movie. I love
Same
Donnie
here.
Yen.
Same here.
I remember him. The first time I saw Donnie Yen was in Blade 2. Okay, and I thought, man, this guy's got something. And then obviously, Ip Man was his bread and butter. But everything else you see him in, you're just like, Donnie Yen is a true G. Like that guy is another guy that you don't want to mess with. And there's a scene at the end of the trailer where it shows him going up against Keanu. And I don't know if he's blind or whatever, because he's wearing sunglasses indoors and he's not even looking at Keanu. And I'm like, okay, is he playing a blind guy? Because he's done that before. He did that in the Star Wars Rogue One movie where he played a blind guy. By the way, that was the character that I was saddest about that died in that movie. I was like,
Same here.
I was like,
Same here.
not him. Oh, but Donnie Yen, they made Keanu look like he was on par with Donnie Yen in that fight. Now, gunplay wise, maybe I would pick Keanu. There's no way in hell I would pick Keanu over Donnie Yen in a fist fight. But they made it look like, I don't know, bro. These guys are top dogs right now. They're alpha dogs. And again, I think that's a credit to the fighting. I mean, even if you look at everything after the first Matrix movie, okay, it was a little too choreographed. Did it feel natural? And so it looked like a ballet every time they fought. Okay, every time Keanu fought, every time Lawrence Fishburne fought, which it's funny to me that they're both now in another series of movies. Okay, I was excited to see Lawrence Fishburne again in this movie. So
yeah, because I sure thought he died.
I thought he did too. I'm sure he's going to die in this one. They kind of foreshadowing that one in the trailer. But again, there was a scene where it looked like Lawrence Fishburne was about to go to battle, and it looked like he lost some weight too. And it looked like, we might get a Morbius version in this fourth movie. So I'm excited. Because like I said, the third one I wasn't too high on. I don't know if I'm biased about Halle Berry. I just don't like her in action movies. But I'm excited for this one because it's like you said, it's a great universe. It's very interesting, very compelling to watch, and I just love watching Keanu just take it to people. Just absolutely take it, just wreck people left and right, and it's almost kind of like those old school samurai movies where you've got this old shogun samurai guy, and he's just laying people to waste, and people just completely they underestimate him because of his age. And I feel like that's how it is with John Wick. Like everybody always underestimates John Wick. Okay, because he's old, he's devastated. They killed his wife, they killed his dog. Or I should say his wife died, and then his dog got killed. And he just keeps wrecking people, just absolutely running through people. And so I'm excited for that. I'm definitely excited for this movie.
No, that's kind of interesting that you would say that Baba Yaga, John Wick is being, after all the people he's killed, someone is still just like, you know what, I can take him. Because I know
Right.
me. I would be like, absolutely not.
Right, because
I
yeah, he's a young dude, thinks, "Oh, yeah, please." I'm like, "Really?
yeah,
It's John
yeah.
Wick."
So we do have another trailer, and we don't really have to get into it, but there is a 4-part Witcher series coming to Netflix that will
Hmm.
be starring Michelle Yeoh, the legend, and I believe it's going to be taking place in another part. It's called The Witcher. One second. It's called The Witcher Blood Origin. It will be coming out on Christmas. It's set in Elven world, 1,200 years before the world of The Witcher,
Oh,
and it's going to tell the story, lost to time, one of 7 outcasts who unite against an unstoppable power that took everything from them. Their blood quest giving rise to a prototype witcher in a conflict that brings about the conjunction of the spears when the worlds of monsters and men and elves merge to become one. So, from my understanding, this is where the Witcher breed comes from, and this whole world all collides together. So I I like the Witcher series. Michelle Yeoh is super legend to me as well. So she's there's a handful of people that whenever there's a certain person, we just talk about Keanu Reeves, Henry Cavill kind of holds that. It's getting close to holding that. Denzel Washington holds that. There's a few actors and actresses that no matter what they're in, good and or bad, I will at least check it out. Right.
hmm.
So when it comes to Michelle Yeoh, I'm going to definitely check this out. I still got to finish up Witcher season 2 before Witcher season 3 comes, but I definitely am looking forward to this.
Did you ever see what is it? Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yes, I really enjoyed that
Okay,
movie.
so I have it. I need to make it my purpose in life to watch this movie because this is the one movie I should say one movie. I'm sure I missed other movies of her, but this is one of those movies that I haven't seen yet. That's on my list of movies to see that I really want to see because, like you said, any type of movie she's in, I'm watching it. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm watching Michelle Yeoh movies. She's just again one of those staples, one of those like legit female action stars. I mean, she's done more than just action, but she's one of those legit like you believe Michelle Yeoh can beat your ass.
Hmm.
You know that Michelle Yeoh. If there's nobody else in the room and you need somebody to help you to watch your back, it's Michelle Yeoh. Okay,
Yes.
Michelle Yeoh is the one you want watching your back. Okay, I don't care if there's some buff dude, who fought MMA or whatever. Nah, man, give me Michelle Yeoh. Okay, I need her to watch my back because she is the one. All right, so yeah, I am. I think that I love her. I I guess I never really paid attention to the types of movies that she's done, and she does a lot
Hmm.
of different types of movies.
Hmm.
Okay, you have your traditional martial arty, your Asian martial arty type of movies or whatever. Okay, uh, House, first time I think I seen her was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yep.
And I loved it. I loved her in that movie. She's probably my favorite character in that movie. Um, but then you see her in something like Shang-Chi, okay? You see her in something like Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And I'll even I just forgot she was in a James Bond movie with Pierce Brosnan. Um,
Hmm.
and I remember that one being dope. I was like, man, like she's done a lot of different ones. So to see her in a Witcher series, like a fantasy type of series, oh, I can't wait to see what she brings to that. Like
Yeah, she's been
she's
catching her second win lately with this
yeah.
the amount of stuff they've thrown her way
And
from.
actually, I would say that I loved her in we just watched Minions: The Rise of Gru, and she voiced an actor in there, and I was like, oh crap, that's Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah. Yeah, ever since I think she did Crazy Rich Asians, and then after that, she's gotten a lot more roles again and came back to the forefront. And she comes from that Jackie Chan cloth as
Yep,
well,
yep.
where she was in a lot of movies doing her own stunts, getting battered and bruised, and she's still ticking just like Jackie is, oddly enough. And but now I believe her star is shining a little bit more than Jackie's now. Jackie's kind of in the background, even though that one movie he did, The Fugitive, I can't recall the name of it. That was pretty decent for him, but I haven't seen him in much since then.
Yeah, I think he's
But
stepped away. I think he has pretty much stepped away from doing any more
I don't think
acting.
he's done any more international movies, but he's done some,
Yeah.
Chinese centric movies. But I don't think he's had another, but larger budget movie as of late.
You know what
So
movie I'm curious to see Michelle Yeoh in is Avatar. 'Cause
I didn't
she's
even know she was in it.
yeah, I'm just looking through, her credits, and she's gonna be in the second Avatar movie. So I'm
Mm,
curious, is she gonna be she's playing a doctor, so she's not gonna be an actual one of the aliens. So I'm curious, is she gonna be a good guy or is she gonna be a bad guy? She'll play a
she
bad
can play
guy.
both, so
Yeah. So
she can do the
I'm
damn
curious.
thing.
Like I said, I'm all in for this Witcher Blood Orchard
Yeah,
thing. I like you. I love The Witcher, uh, which I guess weirdly enough, there's been a lot of, I don't want to say backlash, but there have been petitions to bring Henry Cavill, or no. There have been petitions to bring Henry back, but there have been petitions to have the writers
hmm
fired because
hmm
that allegedly was one of the reasons why Henry left because of creative differences.
right,
Um, but uh, I'm excited to see Michelle Yeoh and what she does with The Witcher.
yeah. Well, after all that good news, I come with anger.
Uh
And I
oh.
come with a lot of anger,
Uh oh.
right? So when I used to live in the Middle East, Michael and I, matter of fact, no, the Middle East is when it started. Maybe actually,
Was it Korea?
I think it
I
was
feel like it was
Korea.
when I felt like it was when you were in Korea.
I think it was Korea at the beginning. So Michael and I are big racing fans out of the family. So we've gravitated to a lot of different racing series between, something simple as Mario Kart to your Forzas to your anything that Burnout is another good one. And then anything that causes damage to your car. Michael and I have always been about that life. And we've had this bitter war that has stood the test of time, right? And to be fair, Michael has bested me in a lot of these series, but it has always been so much fun just getting behind the wheel of a car against Michael on these famous tracks around the world and going toe to toe, especially when we were both in service and he's in whatever state he was in, from Idaho to Kansas, and I was in Korea to Qatar or Hawaii, right? And the series that we gravitated to the most because of especially the damage was Project Cars. It was a series that we first connected with, I think, on the PlayStation 4.
Hmm.
And then after a while, we both bought it on Steam.
Hmm.
And again, we always go toe to toe. And if you don't know, Project Cars was this. It's always been an underrated series because even though it's had all the car damage and things of that nature, I don't think the driving mechanics has always lived up to the hype as some of your other racing simulators. It's more arcade-ish, right? But for us, that's what made it fun. So we would take a Ferrari. Ferraris weren't even licensed in the game. So you had a Porsche versus a F1 car, or you had one of those Gran Turismo cars versus whatever, and we a muscle car, and we used to just go toe to toe and bump heads. Project Cars 2 comes out. And I'll be honest with you, Project Cars 2 had potential, but it wasn't anywhere close to Project Cars, the original.
Hmm.
And so, before you know it, freaking EA. Well, no, actually, let's start before then. Before that, Codemasters came in and decided to acquire Project Cars developer, which was Mad Studios, I believe. And so Mad Studios then went under Codemaster, and Codemasters is known for the F1 series that you currently see today on all Gen networks. I mean, Gen systems. And so that doesn't seem like a bad case to be a part of something like that because they're racing centric. Well, unfortunately, Codemasters was acquired by EA Sports. Well, not even EA Sports, just EA. And EA presented us Project Cars 3. And Project Cars 3 had nothing to do with the other two. They literally took it and took everything that made Project Cars so much fun and turned it into a regular racing port game, which was horrible. Now, after all of that being said and done, it was brought up this week that EA has officially retired the Project Cars series. And from an article from IGN, according to GameIndustry.biz, EA evaluated the status of the Project Cars series and determined that it would be best to retire the franchise to focus on other titles in its portfolio. The publisher confirmed its decision in a statement to the outlet, noting that affected staff will be moved into suitable roles within the company wherever possible. Today, we announced internally an update to our racing portfolio, an EA spokesman said. Following an evaluation of the next Project Cars title and its long-term growth potential, we have made the decision to stop further development and investment for the franchise. Decisions like this are very hard, but allow us to prioritize our focus in areas where we believe we have the strongest opportunity to create experiences that fans will love. This is bullshit. This is bullshit, right? And the reason I say this, right? I've never been a Need for Speed fan. Need for Speed did have one dope concept in which you could play the police officer chasing the car. But other than that, there's nothing to me that Need for Speed has ever made that exciting. The other thing is Codemaster has another series called the Grid series. Grid should be dope, but it hasn't been as dope. But Mike, why don't you give your thoughts because my daughter's now knocking on the door.
yeah, disappointing news. Rodney has every bit to be upset about this. Look, this was a game, and maybe we're biased. I don't know. There are certainly other racing simulation games out there, Gran Turismo, Forza, but there was a feel about Project Cars that was just amazing. And I think, there's always customizable features to these games, right? I think that with this one, it just felt different. It felt different. And Rodney and I, Rodney talks about, the rivalry and this and that, and we go head to head. And we might do these races where it's like, okay, it's a 200 lap race and we're 150 laps into it. I might nudge him and his wheel might pop off and he's screaming and cursing at me. I can hear Rodney hit him, motherfucker. And I'm like, yeah, as I flip on the middle bird in my rear view mirror, like we had so many of those experiences and they were fun, whether you're in a Formula One or an Indy car, whether you're driving some of these touring type cars, Porsche or BMW, Mercedes, whatever. Like there's so many, and we would I remember we tried doing the Le Mans at one point in time. We try to get ready for this 24-hour race.
Oh that's right. That's right.
Like we were dedicated, and so and like, having to think about, pit situations and oh man, let me put some gas in, let me change the tires, this and that, whatnot. And like I say, you can get these in the other games like Gran Turismo or Forza, but just felt different. felt different. And it's really, it's one of these situations where EA, one of these companies that's just a big company that's just buying up all kinds of stuff and, trimming the fat. And, it just, uh, Project Cars is one of those games where you had to worry about microtransactions and buying all this extra BS and just to, you know, unlock this or that, I know Gran Turismo, the latest iteration of Gran Turismo's had issues at launch.
Hmm.
Uh Not so much from a technical point of view, but from a a playing point of view. And so I had never, like Rodney said, I'm never a Need for Speed fan, other than I can't remember which one it was, but it was one that was like in California where you could either be the guy or the guy being chased by the cops, and that was fun. But that wasn't really what I was looking for, you
Hmm.
know. And so Project Cars to me had always been like a little bit more of a serious series. There before that, I think of, and I'm dating myself, I'm thinking back to my old gateway PC days, MS DOS and Windows 98, Windows 95 era. There was a game called IndyCar Racing. And it was phenomenal. It's just a phenomenal game. There were a couple of tracks on there that I fell in love with. And uh, the fact that I got to have those tracks, like Laguna Seca, has always been my favorite track to race it. And the fact that I got to race that in Project Cars was just phenomenal. And again, yes, I know there are other games that will have that same track, but this one was different. The feel was different, and the experience was different. And so now that they're retiring this game, it's just it's
You know what, Mike?
disappointing.
The 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 fact that they even get rid of the crash physics
Yeah.
has been a big thing for me,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like Gran Turismo's is okay if that's your type of game. Forza is okay if that's your type of game, but they don't have none of the crash physics. That's one of the things that made Project Cars, because
Hmm.
you know how many times did me and you try to make it to a pit stop with one wheel that's already done flown off and massive amount of damage, and you sit in the pits for like forever while they try to restore your car back to order? And hey, it's not realistic, but that's what made it fun.
Right. Right.
And again, even though, like I said, you have a game like Burnout didn't do that in that type of fashion. It was just like you do 5 laps, and yes, you might crash into something, but that's it. There's no there was nothing like Project Cars in that sense. And matter of fact, the only other game I can think of is our Uncle Kenny. When he had his PC games, he had a game called Indianapolis 500, where
Hmm.
you sat in the
Yep.
cockpit of the
Yep.
game, and you could crash in that game and have certain situations happen to you as well. And that was one of those games I enjoyed because, again, of those car physics and things of that nature, right? Hey, I love a realistic game. I'm a big F1 fan. I love F1 games, but I also like the fun arcade games where you're just racing and you can just run amok in the game,
Hmm.
almost like the ones that you see at the arcade. Mike, what was that one game back in the day? It was done by Midway. It was like Cruising USA or something of that sense. I can't think of the name of it, but the same thing. You can crash, but no pit stops. But
Right.
you were having a blast with that game. So this one really hurts. It really stings, and it. I know times change. It's not like Project Cars. If Project Cars 2 had did well, maybe Project Cars 3 would have been given the same approach as the other ones. But personally, Project Cars is still a really well done game, but it just misses out on a lot of points,
Right.
unfortunately. So,
Right.
we're kind of stuck with what we have, but
Well,
it still
and
sucks.
I feel it sucks. So it's like, okay, so you're not getting support for this game anymore, which is unfortunate. I don't know how much this is going to be affected. I have recently been thinking a lot about Project Cars,
Mm,
and I have been recently researching people's gaming setups for Project Cars. Only because I had also been researching there's a game called DCS, Digital Combat Simulator, and it's like the ultimate. Think of Microsoft Flight Simulator, but with fighter jets,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an ultra realistic uh, game. It's free to play. However, you have to buy your aircraft, and your aircraft, like if you want to fly an F-18, it's going to cost you $80 just to buy that game, just to buy that aircraft.
Wow.
Okay, it's a full-on digital version of that aircraft, and it's $80. And if you want to play that game with an aircraft carrier, fly off the aircraft carrier, that's like another $50 or $60 just to get that aircraft carrier.
That's
So there are a
crazy.
lot of people that spend thousands of dollars just on the software of this game, but spend even more on the actual setup, where they actually they have joysticks, flight controls that mimic, that look exactly, that are one-to-one replicas of the actual flight controls of that particular aircraft. One of the more famous ones is a flight control from for the A-10 Warthog, and it's an expensive, it's heavy, it's sturdy, it's one-to-one replica. Okay. And so it got me wondering, okay, well, I can't do these setups because some of these people are building setups that you're literally stepping into a cockpit
Mm-hmm.
with. One guy had a almost damn near 360 field of view. He had 3 projection monitors onto this homemade screen where you can do this simulator run.
Have you seen
Um,
some of these racing setups? Because they're the same way.
yeah, so that leads me into my next part. So it led me into thinking, well, what's the racing scene look like? It can't be as expensive as uh, the flight scene. And so I'm looking it up, and I'm like, man, and even Logitech, because Logitech is in this game, and um, they come up with a lot of peripherals. All right, uh, but Logitech has got peripherals that are hundreds of dollars for a racing base. It doesn't include the wheel,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a base that's interchangeable with different types of wheels, whether it be IndyCar, F1, whatever. And so, then of course you got your pedals, and they got, your brakes and stuff, and um, your shifters and whatever. It's just, there's a whole scene out there. And I did a cost comparison of them, and I'm like, well, it's cheaper to do the racing part. And I was like, man, I went down a rabbit hole, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Went down a whole rabbit hole of, you know, because if there's one thing that our listeners should know, is that when one of us, and I'm referring to you, me, your brother, if there's one of us that gets a new piece of tech that we can all enjoy, we all go down that rabbit hole. Okay.
Yeah.
We all go down that rabbit hole. Okay. I think the last one was a PS4, where we were like, I don't know. And then somebody bought it first, and then all of us bought it next.
Yep.
You know, when you bought your Lenovo gaming laptop, I went down the rabbit hole and I bought my Lenovo gaming laptop.
You reserved the Steam Deck, and then next you know I'm reserving one.
Right. So uh I sit there pondering in my mind. I'm like, okay, let me look at this, and let me figure out the cost and this and that, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll bring this up to the cousins. We might all have to go down this rabbit hole. I don't
Yeah.
care if it costs us 10 grand. We we might
We
have to
bring it to
do
the
it.
board of directors, point
Right.
blank.
Yeah, okay, sweetie, I guess you're not going to college because daddy needs to play these games, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Hey,
uh
but there's one thing I do want to mention, because I did kind of I'm throwing shade at them in one sense, but at another sense, I really want to talk about Forza Horizon, or I don't even think it's Forza. I think it is Forza Horizon,
yeah.
and there's a couple videos where there's a gentleman who just he sits in this simulator, and he's got one of those seated simulators with the cool steering wheel and everything. Of course you don't need that, but he's just driving through the city, and
Hmm.
it's beautiful, right?
Hmm.
And I don't want to discount that. I love a good race simulator, right? It's just the fact that I miss the arcade portion of it.
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't have to be on the nose, like you were mentioning. You talk about flying off. I remember I think your father had it. He had a PC game where you're flying a Black Hawk or a
Yep.
Huey,
Yep.
and stuff like that. And yes, those games were technical. They were difficult. You didn't really understand how to fly it. I don't know how many times I crashed a plane trying to, because you don't see the plane itself, you just see the cockpit, right? And you're trying to learn how to land it correctly and all this other stuff. And if you put damage on it, I can almost guarantee I'll lose my positioning and crash somewhere. But the arcade portion of it, at least you can, whether it's Grand Theft Auto or whatever, you just get to see the experience and kind of understand how some of that stuff uh works, or just to be the feel of it. You don't necessarily have the condition or the mental condition to say, I want to be a F1 pilot, right?
Right.
Because Mike, everyone loves that Microsoft simulator for pilots where
Hmm.
you can fly everywhere. You can I had a friend who used to, like, I'm going to fly a commercial plane from LA to Florida, and just so that he could see what the feel is, because he's not going to be a pilot himself, but having the simulator gives him the closest thing without having a license to be the pilot to do something like that. And so those type of things kind of go missing, because yes, some simulations is great, but sometimes just having that arcade version to run them up, crash some stuff. I know some of it's kind of insensitive, but and you would like, hey, someone would have died in that crash. But
Right.
some of that stuff is so fun that it kind of gets missed out on these points.
Right. Yeah, and I think what made Project Cars really nice was that I think it had a nice blend of that arcade style
Yeah,
and of the simulation style.
absolutely.
Okay. And I haven't played Forza Horizon yet.
Mhm.
I have been eyeing it. I'll wait for it to go on discount.
Well,
Um,
I was gonna say, if I don't know if you still have your Game Pass subscription, it's always been free on there.
oh, okay.
So
Well, maybe I'll have to check it on Game Pass because I actually do have Game Pass and I just got it on my Steam Deck,
yeah.
um, which works wonderfully, by the way. Oh my gosh.
I gotta
Um,
I gotta get back to that because I haven't done it in a while. And I know that Microsoft is like, hey, here's instructions how to set it up. I just haven't done it
and they just
personally.
put out a recent update too to make it run even more smooth.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so and I had tested it. I was playing Gears of War 5 on there, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is ridiculous."
Gears of
Um, but yeah, I think what made Project Cars is it had that nice blend. Okay, it was serious enough where you could tweak a bunch of stuff and change a bunch of things, but you didn't get lost in it. It was one of the things I didn't like about Gran Turismo. You get lost in all the tweaks and changing gear ratios and springs and this and that and blah 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 blah. And I was like, I just want to go into the game and race.
hmm
Um, but it gave you enough to be like, okay, there's a time to f around, and there's a time to take it serious. And I think that's what Project Cars. So like I said, it's just different. It's just
Yeah.
different. And so it'll be sorely missed. I will give Forza. I don't know if I would ever go to Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth since the PS2 days. Um, so Forza for sure, because I've played Forza before and I've enjoyed Forza at moments.
So have I.
Um, I've always felt like it felt a little loose with the cars. Maybe they've changed that. I don't know. I was talking to a buddy at work about this where he doesn't like playing racing games because they just don't feel true to how cars should actually be, like physically with physics and physically with physics. Uh, but I felt like Project Cars did a really good job of that and made you really feel the consequences of, hey, you're going into this turn a little too fast and you don't have a drifting type of car.
hmm
There will be consequences.
Yeah.
And so,
I also believe Project Cars was made for a steering wheel compared to a joystick. I think a lot of
oh,
racing
absolutely.
sims is
Absolutely.
made for a steering wheel than a joystick. And like, I remember us trying like muscle cars, and they are wildly unstable steering
Right.
wise
Right.
when you're driving them. But I think it would be different if we had a steering wheel.
Yeah,
right?
I think at some point in time in the future we'll have to make that a project for
Hmm.
one of our episodes to dedicate ourselves to getting in back into racing shape and uh you know it even
Hey,
maybe
we need to
not.
get Project Cars because I don't think I have it on Steam right now. I have I have a different version of it, and I need to just see if it even plays on the Steam Deck just to give it a try.
I know I have one of them on Steam and I know I've played it.
Hmm.
I think it's I'm pulling up my app now and I want to say that it's okay, so maybe the original Project Cars. Or no, is it Project Cars 2?
Or it might be that Project Cars where you get to drive a Zonda or something like that because they had a special version of it too.
Yeah, so I have the original Project Cars. In fact, we have Project Cars and Project Cars 2 on here. Um, and I can't remember which one. I'll have to look at that later. But
Hmm.
I do remember jumping into it and I'm thinking, man, I'm about to bump all these settings up because it looks phenomenal.
Yeah,
Um, so
because you couldn't do that back in the day.
no, 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 of course not. No, no, not with all the fans going and
Hmm.
trying to keep the GPUs from overheating and whatnot. So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, we'll have to get back into that.
absolutely. Mike, so we have a project this week. Let's get to that before we call it a show. Uh, how about you go ahead and tell us what the project this week is since you recommended it?
Okay, so we talked earlier about Keanu and the John Wick series. And so I thought, you know, yes, we talk about games and we talk about movies, TV shows. One of the things that we originally started this for was just to talk about comic books. And so we did one where we talked about American Vampire. And so I thought we would do another reading one. And this is a project on the comic book series by Keanu Reeves and his friend Matt Kent. And it's called Berserker. And so the best way Oh man, the best way to really describe this is that you got this guy, all right, and he is I guess the best way to describe it is he's a hired. I don't want to say hired gun.
Mike, I
Um,
got you. I got you.
all right, go
So
for it.
the volume one is a war with no end. The man known only as B is half mortal and half god, cursed and compelled to violence, even at the sacrifice of his sanity. But after wandering the world for centuries, the berserker may have finally found a refuge, working for the U.S. government to fight battles too violent and too dangerous for anyone else. In exchange, B will be granted the one thing desires: the truth about his endless blood-soaked existence and how to end it.
Yeah. So again, this is co-written by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kent. Art done by Ron Garney. Cover artist Raphael Grappa. If I just grandpa, I'm sure that's Italian or something like that.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's man, it was interesting. Okay, I'll give you two takes from this, especially when we just read American Vampire.
Mhm.
My first take was that this was an extremely violent book.
Yes.
Right? Let's not get. There's no two ways about it. All right. American Vampire was very wordy. I can't remember how many pages that was. It's over 100. So was this one. Okay. 90% of American Vampire had words on it. All right. About 20% of this one out of its 100 plus pages have words on it. All right. The rest is just straight violence. It's literally Keanu Reeves punching through people's heads. They're pulling people's ribs out their body. Um, I mean, eviscerating people, just going to town. All right. Um, so that's my first take. It's a stupidly violent book. All right. And that's even after reading something like Invincible. All right.
Mhm.
Invincible at times can be like uber violent.
The only thing I can
Okay.
even almost compare this to slightly is The Boys.
Or even, yeah, exactly. The boys. Okay. But it was just violent. It was just straight violent. Like, okay, all right, man, this is crazy. That was my first take. My second take is that although this was only the first volume, and this is only strictly going off or comparing it to American Vampire Volume 1. Not as good. Uh, doesn't it doesn't really do a good job of setting it up for the next volume, and I think part of that's because it's not a very wordy
Hmm.
book. Okay,
This was a fast read.
it was a very fast read.
I was
I read this
assuming.
in like one shift.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was assuming that I'd be having to knock out an
Yeah,
issue a night or something like that.
yeah. American Vampire took me a while to get through, and I didn't even
Same.
finish it by the time that we did the recording.
Hmm.
I was like 75, 80% through it, and I was like, "Oh my god, there's still more." This one I got through in one shift, one eight
Yeah.
hour shift at work. Okay. So with that said, this was actually I enjoyed it. I did enjoy this book. Um, there's something there for sure. This class, and I think a lot of it has to deal with what happened in the past
Hmm.
with B and how that translates into what's going to happen in the future. Because really, he keeps talking to this doctor after he keeps going through his memories or trying to regain his memories from his past, and keeps talking to this doctor. And so you know what he wants. We don't necessarily know what the end game is. It just you're doing wet work for the US government, or is there some sort of end game here? And there's this promise of you're gonna make me mortal. This is why I'm working for you guys. You're gonna make me mortal so I can finally die type of situation.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's his past, which is super tragic. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just super tragic. And so and then dealing with the I guess the God aspect of it, his mom asking the gods, and then one of these uh, lightning gods coming in and taking her like just straight pile driving her, and then the
Hmm.
next day she's pregnant, and then not too long after that she's having B, and um I mean even as a child he's just massacring. Oh my god, just straight massacre. And then like what ended up happening to his father and how his father died. It was very violent. The art style, while not very I don't want to say it's very detailed or ultra realistic
I say it's not very clean.
or
Like
clean.
if you were to
Yeah.
say like, so Ron Garney is one of my favorite artists because he used to draw a really beautiful Captain America back in the day.
Okay.
And his lines in that book compared to this one is completely different.
Okay.
And for me, I don't. You know how you hear someone's name and you expect a particular thing.
Mm.
So with Ron Garney, I was expecting a particular thing, and then when I saw this, because it's such a shift in his art, I didn't like it.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Now, with that being said, I didn't like it for Ron Garney, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But it makes sense for this book, right? Because this isn't a Marvel book. This isn't a DC book. This is, I don't even think it's an Image book, but it's, you know, with the what it's being asked for. Of course, your art style has to change because I think Ron Garney has to carry the book more than the writers do. They barely wrote
Right.
anything in this first volume, to be honest with you, right? Um, and so when they say co-written by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kent,
Right. So
I,
what? So what,
I,
Keanu? You wrote 2 pages?
that's that's really what I'm thinking. Like he had to write like two sentences, but he's getting credits on it because there's not much dialogue to go around, and
Yeah.
um, and I don't know that, like you said, because Scott Snyder's pretty wordy, and so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I hope Ron Garney got paid really well because again, he had to do all the visualizations for all of this, right?
Yeah.
And I think he again, if he if his art didn't do the storytelling, this book would have been horrible,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I think
So
you're right. And I think that you're more uh ec- or aware of, more knowledgeable of the art within the comic book world, uh,
Mhm.
have more insight into it. Like for me, I think you're exactly right. I think even though it was super violent, okay,
Mhm.
and not as the art was a little bit more simple, uh, I think it did a great job of conveying the mind of B, who when he goes in, when you think of, it's titled Berserker, all right? You think of any video game where they have a Berserker mode, it just means you're going crazy. Thor even has in the comic books a mode where he goes into there's Berserker Thor, okay? And where it's just he loses his mind and he's just mad with blood. Like he craves blood. Like he's just I got to kill it as much as I can. And that's what you get here. Like B is just straight up. It's basically, look, this is it. There's no way two ways about it. This is Wolverine, okay? Without the
Mhm.
adamantium,
Mm.
okay? And without the claws. This
I
is
like that. I
yeah,
like that.
this is just Wolverine going throughout and without the I guess Wolverine's a mutant and B is a guy that is a half god, right? Um, but they have very similar stories going throughout the years, and I'm sure we'll see this in the next few volumes where you see him going through all these wars, all right, fighting for different various people, just like Wolverine, just throwing his body into the fray, just like B. Okay, he's getting all shot up, he's getting blown up. There's a scene where he takes a grenade, shoves it
Mhm.
in this soldier's mouth, blows up, and then the next panel is B missing half his face and his hand. Okay, and it doesn't necessarily look like, and it looked like he doesn't necessarily look like he has the same kind of regenerative power as Wolverine. Like it looked
Mhm.
like after that mission, they had to do some work to him to get
It
him
seems like
back
it takes him.
a little
It
bit
seems like
longer.
it takes him as long as necessary to
Right,
heal,
right,
compared to like Wolverine's is almost instantaneous.
exactly. Like it's fast. It's boom. You know,
Mhm.
when he, I guess, surrendered to the army, when in the past, they pulverized him, literally pulverized him.
Yeah.
Uh, it looked like he went into a cocoon
Mhm.
and then came out basically reborn. And you don't really get to see how long that took.
But I'm assuming it took like almost a year.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think that with the art style, I'll just say just the artist in general. Okay, uh, I think that he did a great job of conveying the madness that B is feeling, the craziness of it,
Mm.
uh, because surely the conversations and everything did not do that.
No.
Okay, like I said, you don't know what the true motivations of the U.S. government are, other than that they're trying to build more of him. I guess, like we're
You ever
trying to,
seen? I
we're
was
trying to
sorry to
unlock.
cut you off, Mike. I was gonna say it almost like he was conveying someone with anger management issues.
Yeah, absolutely,
You know.
absolutely. And I thought that like his impulses, like he was just
Yeah.
not able to. And
Control his
again, just like
impulses.
Wolverine, not being able to control those impulses to fight. Okay, he's got to, and I forget what the word they used in the book, but it was, we gotta let him let go.
Mhm.
You gotta let him get his hunger in. There's a point where he's just going to town, going to town. This in the past. Well, I guess it happened in the past and in the present, where in the past he takes out one of the generals that was on his side, and
Mhm.
his dad's like, stop, 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 you gotta stop. And then in the present, the team leader's like talking to B and he's like, yeah, I'm sorry about blah blah blah. He's like, well, it happens. He's like, yeah, he accidentally got in my way. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I feel like I would give it another chance. I would like to read volume 2. Uh
So would
just to
I.
see where it's going. But I don't get that same feeling like I did with American Vampire. Like, man, I gotta see what's going on.
Yeah.
I gotta see what's going on because American Vampire was so well written and granted, it's Scott Snyder and freaking uh oh
Stephen
my
King.
gosh, Stephen King. Okay, compared to, and I don't, and maybe you know, but I don't know what Matt Kent's credentials are. Um,
Neither did I, and I was getting at one point I was getting confused with Jeff Lemire, and so I was when I was looking, I was thinking like, wow, Jeff Lemire who drew he
like
wrote
Moon
that one series.
Knight.
No, remember that one series me and you read back in the day
Oh, was it?
where
It was like science or something like that.
they went underwater. It was this one boy. It was kind of like talking about loss,
Oh yeah, no, no, no. I know which one you're talking about. Yes, yes.
right? So, and if you don't know, Jeff Lemire also does Sweet Tooth, which is a very good TV show, by the way, for families. But Matt Kent has written a couple superhero books back in the day. Nothing notable to me, and and that's just because he's more of a newer age writer than old school for me to remember,
Mm,
unfortunately. And when it comes to this, I was more intrigued with B's past than I was his present. Number one,
yep.
because
Agreed.
it
Agreed.
gave me a lot more to understand who he is. And there's a lot more you can do there because that's only, mind you, they're in present time. So let's say they're in 2020. We're getting into the, we see him in Neanderthal times. So I guarantee you we'll see him in another time where it's more maybe medieval time, or, they can go to all these other little pockets of time. So there's some curiosity there. But then you got to understand is how do you end up in prison for the rest of your life behind bars or
Mm,
something like that, and that curiosity comes into play. The other side of this is I was thinking about how we kind of did with American Vampire, or we did with Black Panther the movie. Who was your favorite character, who was your worst character? Because I feel like the government is lying to be, and they're not really working, even though he's well aware of what they're trying to do to him. I don't
right.
think they're trying to help him find his morality
Right.
either.
Right. Like they
Uh,
said, yeah, we'll help you find morality, or you're, become immortal, or
mhm.
and we're just trying to make super soldiers. Like there's
Yes,
gotta be more. Like, come on.
yes, yes.
Because
And
they had the one
so,
general in there who's keep talking to the doctor, like, yo, you gotta get more out of this guy. And it's like,
mhm.
what's the real story?
And because of that, and funny enough, if you really think about it, Mike, that first episode was the first mission, and then
Hmm.
after that, he's just sitting in that lab the whole
Hmm.
time, and they're going through the past.
Hmm.
And it just left me wanting more, like, well, not wanting more in the sense of a good thing. It was like, wait, that's it? What
Yeah.
would what's going on here? Like, I think you should give me a bit more than this
Well,
to
and we
get me to
saw
understand it.
we saw in American Vampire, they kept going from each issue was either the present or the past.
Hmm.
And I think the difference was that we got so much from both.
Yeah.
Okay, the past was all about origin stories, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the present was all about, okay, yes, we're trying to get revenge, but there's a long game here. Okay,
Hmm.
and we don't know what that long game is, but they've told us there's a long game, um, and we're trying to figure out how we're getting to that long game. And then we go back into the past, we find out more, like we find out what people's motivations are, not
Hmm.
just one character. Uh, and so I think with this one, because it was not as wordy as American Vampire, I think you're right. I think the past was more compelling for B. How, yes, they're in this valley, they got all the resources, everybody wants these resources. Uh, the king doesn't know what to do, or the leader of the village doesn't know what to do.
Hmm.
Um, the mother goes to pray to a god to give them a weapon, but that's
She
all
gets
that
her
the
cheeks
father.
slaps, and next thing you know, she ends up
Right,
with this son that's ultra violent, and now you see the father being corrupted.
right.
And that to me was, they might as well start it there. Like,
Hmm.
if they had to retweak it, you might as well start it there and then show me what you showed me that first issue and the last issue. And
Right, and
then
they
I
probably
think
could have slowed it down too in that
that
past.
too. Yep.
They probably could have slowed it down and gotten more into because it kind of seemed forced, like it seemed a little too fast. Like,
Mhm.
okay, everybody thinks that the kid is a weirdo and he's violent, and they saw him destroy like a wolf or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Uh,
Then he
and
killed the bear or whatever.
yeah, and then it just automatically transitioned into him being a young adult and he's just murking people. And it's like, okay, cool, but let's get to the point where you've got the mom praying for this weapon, but then at the end of her life, she's really wanting to try and help him
Mhm.
and have him not be a weapon. Like really looked at him as a son, whereas the
Yeah.
dad was like, "No, you're a straight weapon, bro."
Yeah.
Okay.
And he would only call him by was it Utuna?
Oh yeah, yeah,
And only referred to him, which only meant weapon
yeah,
in that particular language. So
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it was good. I
yeah.
ish. I mean, not on par with American Vampire for sure.
I think if
Um,
you had the omnibus, because I think the second volume is the last. I don't think it's a like an ongoing series, and I could be mistaken here. As far as like, it's not a monthly title that's going on indefinitely.
that I don't. So I do see that. So right now, I'm just looking through there are 4 volumes,
Hmm.
at least that I can see from right now.
Mm,
I don't know if it's like you said a uh well actually no, I take that back. Let me take that back because this was volume 1. So let me go to series. See series info. Okay. Uh so there are just 2 volumes.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, they to me they have a lot of ground to cover to get me to
Jeez.
understand what's going on.
The second
Uh,
the second volume is even less. It's 132 pages.
sheesh.
And you know what though? So the first one was 140 some odd pages.
Uh-huh.
Uh and 141 pages. And actually, when I think about it, uh, I don't even think it got to 141 pages. I think I could swear it only got to like I could swear it only got to like maybe 100 pages.
Mm,
Um, let me here I am right here. Okay, 112 pages of actual story.
see. Yeah, okay. So basically we got gypped for one volume because I paid $13, right?
Yeah.
And I only got 100 pages for what's supposed to be what, 4 issues? And or
Yep.
5 issues,
4 issues. No, you're right.
4 issues, right? So let's say 30 pages of 4 issues. That's still over 120 pages of story. And even though you're close, you didn't give me much to go on with very little dialogue. Again, I hope Ron Garney got paid a whole Brinks truck for what he
Just
had to do.
just for comparison,
Hmm.
volume 1 of American Vampire was 200 pages,
Yeah,
175 of which
with
was
story.
was story.
Hey, and you know how wordy Stephen King is, so the fact that they even got only that many is
Yeah.
kind of surprising. But still, regardless, it's I would love to just finish out that series just because I would like to see if it gets better. But then I'm also concerned that it doesn't get much better, and then I just paid for very little dialogue.
Right, so
So,
134 pages, I think, is the next volume,
mhm.
um, and it gets comparatively, you know, percentage-wise, it's 92% for of the story for Berserker. It was 95%. Um, but like I said, it was more you know, way more much more. So 100, what did I say, 175
Mhm.
pages of story
Yeah.
versus 112 for a
Mhm.
first volume.
That's not a
Um,
lot.
it's not. It really isn't. And
And to be
uh
fair, well, go ahead. Go ahead first.
yeah, yeah. So just to sum it up real quick for me at least, um, yes, American Vampire's longer. It's 6 issues in a volume. You got 2 very big uh, big blockbuster writers,
Mhm.
okay, versus Keanu and his foray into writing, and Matt Kent, who, again, like you said, is a newcomer. Uh, so it's kind of like blockbuster versus, I guess, indie and
Hmm.
these indie titles. um, so as far as recommending or not, I would have to read this, like you said, I'd have to read the second volume to be honest with you.
Yeah, same here. Because right now, if you was just to tell me to recommend it to someone off of the first volume, I wouldn't.
Right.
Just especially for for the price point that it was at, because it's a fairly recent book, so you would
Hmm.
assume I expect more for paying that much, right? If not, they should have just kept waited until the second volume came out and then just put it all together instead of doing it this way. I understand they got money to make back. I don't want to act like I'm oblivious to that point. And hey, I know some of this is just off a name alone, but this is, to me, this missed the mark. Uh Unfortunately, for making me say to myself, I'm gonna come back for volume two. If it It's weird. I'm just on the fence with that because I'm curious to see if it gets better. But then that fear comes in. If it doesn't get better, then now I've wasted $25.
Right, and that's not cheap. I mean,
No.
that's when you compare that to what you can do for $25 on Steam.
Yeah.
Okay, that could be
Yeah.
like anywhere from 1 to 3 games,
Yeah.
or even 5 like really budget games on
Hmm.
Steam.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
All right, Mike. So let's finish this off by saying what we are looking forward to. I'm going to go ahead and start this off. What I'm looking forward to is for Michael to watch Black Panther, Wakanda, whatever, not whatever, forever, so we can talk about it. I would like to discuss what I'm not going to say anything, just because I want Michael to go in there and watch it with his own eyes and all that stuff, and we can have a true discussion about it.
mm,
But yeah, I would love to see that and see what his thoughts are and talk about. The other thing that I'm really looking forward to upcoming soon is, we're not there yet, but as we're inching closer, I can't wait for the holiday sales for Steam. I can't wait to see what's on sale, what I can get at a massive discount. And that's going to be very exciting for me because I know there'll be some stuff that I have in my wish list that I can't wait to get my hands on. So I really need to finish up Uncharted and maybe one other game so I can get prepared for that. Mike, what's your things that you're looking forward to?
yeah. So I think first and foremost, yes, Black Panther for sure. Uh, Got to try to make that happen, and that might have to be, well, I'm either gonna have to see it with the family or not.
Hmm.
Um, I am also looking forward to. I just saw this week. Uh, so uh, D Brand, very popular company where they make skins for all kinds of tech, including the Steam Deck. They a few months ago came out with their protective cover for the Steam Deck. Unfortunately, it had to get recalled because they had a magnet on the back of the protective case where you could attach a kickstand to it, which seemed like a great idea. Unfortunately, that magnet, depending on which Steam Deck you had, would slow down the fan for that Steam Deck. Okay, because certain Steam Decks were shipped with a fan that had steel parts in it, and some weren't. Okay, and so they recalled that that product, and that wasn't so much their fault. It was just Steam initially gave them this one type of Steam Deck to work on. Uh, Throughout this whole release process with Steam, they did change fans, and so when they changed those fans, D Brand did not get that system, and so they just had no idea. So they recalled everything, and then I just got a notification saying, "Hey, look, we have this case that's out. It's 100% magnet, no magnets on there." Um, what's really compelling about this case is that yes, it's a cover that fits over your Steam Deck, but it has a protective cover that fits over the screen of the Steam Deck. And that's what really intrigues me because one of the bigger, I guess, issues other than battery life is portability, especially with the case that comes with the Steam Deck. It gets quite blocky. Okay.
Mm,
And so this kind of eliminates that. All right. And makes it much slimmer to just throw in your bag without having to worry about your screen or scratching up the system or the joysticks. And so I'm looking forward to that. It's pricey, it's like $80. Okay. Um, but it comes with the case, it comes with the cover, it comes with a skin, and it comes with I believe joystick grips. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'll wait till a few reviews come out. I'm also looking forward to, and I know I said earlier that I'm not a big fan of roguelike shooters,
hmm
but this game Returnal has just been confirmed for the Steam platform. All right. And so I assume that it's going to run. This is a PlayStation game, and I assume that it will run on the Steam Deck as all the other PlayStation games. And I'm looking forward to this one, not only because it's another PlayStation game coming to the Steam Deck, but this game looks pretty interesting, pretty fun. It's a sci-fi game. It's again, it's a roguelike, just like um, oh gosh, the last one that just came out for PlayStation. I almost got it just because it was something that I had been looking at. I have it on my wish list here. If I can bring it up real quick. Oh, it's not loading. Oh, Deathloop. Deathloop.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So
I
Deathloop
can't
is
wait for that
another
one either.
roguelike. Um, but I think that the way that these I can play a roguelike if as long as it's interesting.
hmm
Like I said, Hades is one that I actually enjoyed. Uh, but a lot of roguelikes I don't really enjoy. Between Deathloop and Returnal, they look really good. I'm really interested to see how Returnal looks handheld because the game is it was one of those PS5 showcases that really got people like, man, this looks really good. Um, and it looks like and I gotta look into this. Uh, one of the strong points of the PS5 controller is that it has adaptive triggers where depending on the weapon you have, you know, Rodney, you're former army guy. Different weapons have different trigger pulls, whether
Sure.
it be 10 pounds, 5 pounds, 1 pound, whatever. Apparently, that's what the PS5 controllers do.
Mm.
Okay, and so depending on how you have it, which weapon you have, you either pull the trigger hard or you pull it light, whatever. So, um, I'm really looking forward to Returnal. It looks really cool. It's a sci-fi adventure game, and they don't have a date yet, but it is confirmed for the Steam.
That's dope. Yeah, I'm super excited for all this upcoming stuff, especially this fourth quarter stuff, because we should be getting some more exciting titles from here to I think about Thanksgiving, and then all the sales should be hitting. But until then, we will see you for another episode of Nation 80 Podcast. This has been episode 25. Yeah, we are still staying strong with it. So until then, keep your imagination up and see you on the next one.